All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Daniel, and I'm here with my friend Jack. Tonight, we have a very, very special treat for you all. We have an interview tonight with Judy Lynn Taylor. She's a shamanic practitioner. So the way that I met Judy is through Middle Way Health and Middle Way Health Foundation, where she plays a vital role. But she also runs an organization that's called Adventures in Shamanism, which offers to restore balance and harmony to your spirit through shamanic healing. And you can learn more about Judy and her shamanic practices at www.adventuresinshamanism.com. So with that, I thought I'd just say hi and welcome, Judy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, my understanding is that typically, shamanic practitioners might start off any type of a session with a special ceremony. Is that right?
a little bit of ritual kind of helps put you in the mood. So what I'll do is call in the powers of the directions, the transpersonal beings who help us. People may see what I'm doing and say, oh, you did it wrong. I work with the spirits that help me, and it may not be the same that help you or you, So let's take off. Okay, I use my rattle with percussive sound as being a gateway to non-ordinary reality. I call to the powers of the four directions, to the great sunset bear, spirit keeper of the west, direction of autumn and of harvest time, a time of prosperity and a time of gathering in. To you we give thanks, and I ask you to be with us this evening, teach us and inform us, and we are grateful. To the great white buffalo, spirit keeper of the north, direction of cold and ice, a time of hibernation and a time of planning. To you we give thanks, and we ask you to be with us this evening, teach us and inform us, and we are grateful. To the great thunder eagle, spirit keeper of the east, direction of springtime, a time of planting, a time of awakening. To you we give thanks, and we ask you to be with us this evening, teach us and inform us, and we are grateful. To coyotes and mouse, spirit keepers of the south, direction of summertime and warm, lazy days, a time of growing things. To you we give thanks, and we ask you to be with us this evening, teach us and inform us, and we are grateful. And to all beings of above, below, and center, to you we give thanks, and we ask you to be with us this evening, teach us and inform us, and we are grateful.
And we are grateful.
And we're here.
Yeah, thank you so much, Judy.
Yeah, thank you for that. I really love visualization. That's a meditative practice that I do a lot. And so that really kind of cued into that for me. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It really set the tone too. I kind of got a slight feeling for what's about to happen or what we're going to talk about. Nice.
We never know. We'll see what they say.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering, Judy, I was
Uh-huh.
wondering if tonight, for folks who are maybe uninitiated or, don't know much about shamanism, other than maybe what they saw on January 6th or what they might see go, going on down in South America. There's people might have a variety of misunderstandings or just simple lack of information. I include myself in the mix. So forgive me if there's any faux pas. I don't know much about shamanism, but as soon as I heard, I've always been sort of intrigued. And as soon as I heard about you and your practices, I was like, oh man, I want to talk to Judy. So I was kind of hoping. I was kind of hoping that maybe you could start by giving us an overview, like a sort of a broad general overview of what shamanism is, and maybe tell us a little bit about how you came to be a practitioner.
Okay, well, a shaman or shamanic practitioner is a person who can alter their consciousness, usually with percussive sound, so they're in total control, and go to those worlds of non-ordinary reality where the transpersonal beings live, those who help us, and we come into relationship with those beings, whether we call a spirit of bear or Kuan Yin or, spirit of agave. That's my plant spirit, tequila,
Yeah.
So
That's right.
I use a lot of agave syrup. So you come into relationship and you go to them again and again and again. And if they don't have the answer or they don't have the help, they take you to someone else. And so you end up having several or a team of helpers who work with you. And after a time, through the shamanic journey, which is a form of meditation, you learn to go and to come and to go and to come until you get to the point where it's just like right there, grandfather, and you got the answer, bear, help me, you got the answer. I knew an attorney who went into court with a bear and a cougar beside him. So it's kind of like if you saw The Golden Compass, that movie where I will say it the way I believe is proper, their daemons accompany them, they're helpers. And it's kind of like that. That's kind of the way my mind has worked since I was a kid playing in the garden, always interacting with my imaginary friends, which are still here, and they're not imaginary. If you were to reach out and touch, you would feel they're there. If you feel auras, you feel energy, they're there. Through the information that they give you that you're not making it up.
Yeah, Judy, I loved on your website in your kind of about Judy section, that description of you as a child, this kind of magical quality that you had, and that I think most children have, right? Where we're kind of tapped into that spirit world. And you said in that section, looking back, I can see the little wispy hint of a theme winding through my life. And I just thought that was so beautiful. And I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about, when did you first start noticing that theme, that kind of thread, calling you towards the spirit world?
Spent a lot of time alone in nature as a kid, go out and play, and we had a backyard. It's safe, it's fine. I go and play. Dog would go along with me. Dog's name was Tagalong Taylor. And Tag would go and keep an eye on me, and I was fine. And so I was able to interact, talk to the bees, learn what not to do with bees, talk to the spiders. I remember as a child sitting and watching a spider make an orb web. The whole, for whatever long it took, I just sat there and watched, you know. And it's like, I guess it comes from the heart and the feeling. And kids aren't so far away from where we come from, you know. And it's just always been there. And in my family, it was okay to be intuitive, to have ESP, that sort of a thing. And so it wasn't whacked out of me, you know.
God, what a blessing. Oh, man. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I work in the mental health world, and particularly in a psychiatric hospital, and it really gets beat out of people very intensely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which is too bad. And the shaman needs to know when they're there or when they're here. Mm-hmm. And if there's a part of them still connected and functioning. When we're trained to do the shamanic journey, we're trained to alter the consciousness, to go into those realms, upper, lower, middle world realms, connect with the spirits, finish our work, and to come back.
Right.
You know, the same way we went. And there's a certain drum beat that changes. We use the drum a lot. And when the drum beat changes, that's your call to say, thank you for helping. I got to go back. I'm being called. And then you come back. And if you weren't finished, you could start the drumming CD over again or drum more for yourself and go right back to where you left off and continue that journey.
Wow. So it's really, you have the tools, the skills to be able to go into that realm that otherwise people might get lost.
They could. And that's why wherever we go, whatever we're working on, we go with our helpers, power animals, spirit teachers, other kinds of beings, could be angels. I had a circle that met on September 12th, 2001. And everybody was reeling from the bombings. And I said, okay, team, we're going in. And one of the things that a shamanic practitioner does is they're a psychopomp, which is a guide for the dead. And we had our power animals take us to ground zero and looked at the energetic, goings on there, and we're literally reaching in and pulling souls up and helping them to get up. And then later on the internet, I had seen a person's drawing of the picture of Christ, like with his arms around the ghost of the towers and these souls moving up. That's exactly what we saw. And it was all women that night, but every woman who did this journey, and there was 6 or 8, as we traveled across the country, we went there, we offered help and healing as best we could. We came back, we all saw the same thing. And so that lets you know, this ain't real. There's a this side and there's a that side across the veil. It's through all folklores. It's buried in all religions. And all you have to do, according to one of my teachers, Hank Wesselman, is double click the right program. The training gets you there, the basic training.
I wanted to ask you about that. So how does one become a shaman? Is it something where there's some kind of grace involved or unusual or special characteristics of the shaman? Is it something for everyone? Are there gurus, teachers, programs? Like, what's the world, like sort of the educational world of a shaman look like?
Different in traditional settings, in indigenous settings, than in modern times. Okay. In our tribal days, the elders would watch the children, and they would know who had this tendency to, to be able to travel. And they might play a game with them, and they would say, "Hey, come here, come here." "What, Grandma?" "Okay, I'm going to go hide in non-ordinary reality, and you find me." "Okay, here I go." And if I, within the interior landscape, went over the mountain and through the forest and sat down by the lake, then that kid would be expected to find me and follow me in non-ordinary reality, sitting right there on the ground. And then when we opened our eyes, he would say, "You went by the lake." And I would say, "I sure did." So that, and then a person would be just brought along in whatever that tribe's tradition is. Sometimes a person has an illness or near-death experience and they come out rewired. And sometimes the spirits just push on you, push on you, push on you, and you can't avoid it. You try and run and it keeps happening. You may be taken on a spontaneous out-of-body experience and be going like, whoa, like in the Spirit Walker trilogy, happened to an educated PhD, Hank Wesselman. He was taken on journeys, boom. They're saying, "You're going to do this," So those of us who may be very telepathic, we are interested for who knows why, we just like this stuff, and may have read something. And there are organizations out there who can give you good training. One is Michael Harner's group, shamanism.org, the Foundation for Shamanic Studies. They give very good trainings, especially in the basics. Shared Wisdom was Hank Wesselman and Jill Kuykendall's website. Jill's still with us. Praise the Lord. And she has a lot of training on that website. There's other people that I've studied with over the last 25 years. I could go on with names, John Perkins is one. Some of the authors that are out there did Sweat Lodge with Phil Crazybull, and it's just everything that you do, that you study along the way, adds to it, especially once you have the basics. And that's why I call it an adventure. It never ends. It's like life. It never ends until you exit. And we call it drumming circle, but it's a journey practice circle, has been meeting in Oak Grove since 2006. And the basic team is still going. Wow. And I don't make up the lessons. I go into trance and I ask my teaching spirits, "What are we doing?" And I just take dictation. Wow. And then I offer that. Here's how we'll do this journey or form of meditation tonight. Yeah.
I would imagine that that takes a level of courage and also self-awareness too, as the shaman, to be willing to do that with others and kind of enter this space of trance, and maybe the right word isn't vulnerability, but you're open. I'm wondering what that's like.
Okay, do you have me? Because it
lost you for a
winked out
second.
for a minute.
Yeah. Jack, would you mind repeating the question?
Yeah. So I'm just thinking about, that space of trance and being with others in that state. That must take a level of courage and self-awareness on the side of the shaman, and trust, I imagine too.
Well, for all of us are shamanic practitioners together, and we do our journeys, and then we come back and talk about them, and they can get pretty personal on the stuff we're working on. And so, yeah, there is a level of trust, humility, support, and it just keeps blossoming. We keep learning.
Yeah. Wow.
And I studied with the Foundation for Shamanic Studies in a 3-year program. I went through Shared Wisdom, Hank Wesselman's year program, 4 times, and other things starting in 95-ish.
Has your practice been sort of steadily growing since early childhood, where you witness it yourself sort of blossoming or growing into this practice? Or, I guess what I'm kind of getting at is, were there, throughout your whole experience from early childhood to present day, was there any sort of like doubt, for example, where you were like, man, am I crazy? Am I not normal? Was there anything like that, or was it just kept growing?
It just kept growing for me.
Yeah.
A lot of people, when they start having these experiences, they go, am I making this up? But if you really look at it, I'm not making this stuff up.
Yeah.
We'd never think of this,
Oh, for sure.
This experience without.
It's a lot like, it sounds to me, and maybe you can speak to this a little bit. It seems sort of, there in modern day, there's a lot of what I think what are termed psychonauts nowadays, right? People who want to explore the psyche through various altered states of consciousness, of which there are many modes or ways of getting there. So and I know that, at least in my own experiences, there is something to that sort of like, wow, there is something sort of real there, even if you can't sense it in sort of the ordinary ways. There's a sort of sense of very real, like, as you pointed out, maybe some sense of like, this didn't come from me, like, I know it didn't come from me, it came from somewhere else. So there's that sort of component to it. But I wonder if you could discuss for a minute the differences between sort of a shamanic practice where you journey and other forms of altered states of consciousness.
Well, there are psychotropic drugs, and that's a different story. Then the plant spirit or the chemical or whatever, it just takes you, and there you are. You're on a trip. Better hold on, fasten your seatbelt, When you meditate, you're sitting and you're consciously relaxing and going into the force, feeling your divinity, and if you have helpers that you're aware of, becoming aware of them, and just being in that place, following the breath and feeling your own energy. It's an energy kind of a place. With the journey, you start the same way every time, just like you may start your meditation, light an incense, light a candle, humdy hum, om, doing your thing. You go into what we, in the tradition I'm in, we call our sacred garden. It's your safe place inside in psychobabble, you know. And it's beautiful. It's a place in nature. And from there, you can meet your spirits. You can travel to the lower worlds, the upper worlds, with your helpers, and you're going to get information and bring it back for self or others, or to affect healing through one of the healing modalities, and to help self or others. A lot of people like to play around. Oh, let's see if we can find some ghosts. You know, maybe they'll move something or record something, or you'll see, oh, go by the screen or something. That kind of chaps my hide, you know. To me, if someone is a ghost, I go and say, hey, dude, do you know you're dead? You know,
Yeah.
do you need some help? What do you want to go home? What happened to you? Were you sick? Were you shot? Were you what? You know, and you do a little healing on that soul right there, and then you get them where they need to go.
Mm-hmm.
Some people say, do you want to go up or do you want to go down? Most people in this day and age say, I want to go up.
Mm-hmm.
How?
That's true. That's true. What does like shamanic healing usually consist of? I imagine it's probably tailored a little bit, right? And it's varied based upon the individual and the practitioner. But at least in your experience, what would a person who was undergoing shamanic healing expect? What would they be looking forward to?
Some of them wouldn't expect anything unless they understood. If they're fussed up, confused, just need help, depressed, whatever their problem is, they come. And the first thing is we would do a divination where I would, you know, take my rattle and do my thing and kind of get a look at them energetically, see what their energy, their spirit is showing me. Where do I find them? What do they look like? What are their colors? You know, and then I ask to see the helping spirits that are around them. A couple of power animals, maybe, you know, great Aunt Sadie, maybe, of course, they're angelic beings. It seems like everybody has somebody of a higher nature watching them, and maybe a spirit teacher. And then I would ask those guys and say, hey, you know, this person's feeling this way. What should we do? And then if they have an entity with them that doesn't belong there, of course, that would be the first thing we would do, is help that being to, you know, go home. Nobody should be in your space but you. Mm-hmm. Then we would do either one of two things. If they had an entity that needed to go, then we would do a soul retrieval to bring back lost parts of the soul, which break off at times of stress, trauma, automobile accidents, beatings, war, fights. I even had a person came to me and had soul loss because they got dumped off at kindergarten for the first day.
You're doing soul defragging. You're defragging souls. Right?
I don't know what that means.
Defragment. It's a computer term. Like it's fragmented and it's
bringing back together. Okay, I got you. Yeah. Yes. So with a power animal, I don't do it. This helper is an expert tracker and takes me to the lost soul parts, and I will see them at the age that they left. Oh. So let's say, you know, your dad beat you up when you were 5 or something like that, and I go and I find that soul part, you know, still stuck there in that room, and bring it back to the person who needs that inner child back, but healed. The child is our source of imagination and creativity. And we want those parts back. The trauma does not come back. The memory is already there, right? What comes back is pure soul energy that, you got chipped off, and it took away some of that pain. And so you bring that back. And people who are sensitive, when that is transferred to them, they can feel it. They might just feel warmth, glow right through them. They might go, yeah, I remember, I feel that, And we get 1, 2, or 3 at the most soul parts throughout life, bring them back, and then teach the person how to connect with them and to maintain the healing. And it's interesting,
Yeah, it's fascinating
to see what happens. And most people, they come in, and they go out, oh man, glowing, because they got this energy back, and it's theirs. It's not somebody else's, it's theirs.
I love, when you were talking, there were a couple times where you really pointed that out, that this energy that comes back, it's theirs, it's no one else's, as well as that we don't want anyone in our space. Like, our space is ours. And that's so interesting that and I see this in Buddhism too, from my studies, is that we're all, we're doing these practices together. And in fact, we can't do them alone. We need a guide. And yet that guide is helping us come back to ourselves, our true nature. It's incredible.
Yeah, Jack, what you said just there, I noticed, I don't know where I saw this, Judy, it's probably on your website. But there was this thing that just resonated with me where you said, it's about bringing back self and getting rid of other.
Right. That would be the other half or part, and other part. There are other healing things that may happen, but people can stick energy on us, you can be in an argument with someone, they can say something, and you just feel it, boom, right in your solar plexus or your heart, or you go, I got whacked, That energy can stick with us. Someone just loves us so much. We call it the Velcro effect. They leave their energy on us,
Velcro effect.
Yeah. You don't want that. So I have another helper who is an expert. Now we've called the client spirit, their helpers, and their helpers are saying, clean them up, do an extraction healing. It's like extracting a tooth, only we're feeling where in the body they have bumpy, scratchy, ugly energy. And all energy will talk to you, so you're in there and you can feel this ball of goo by their knee, and you can say, oh, I get the picture that maybe you were running or you were in PE or something, and something or somebody kicked you or hit you in the knee, and there's this energy there. And they might say, yeah, I used to run track and field, and this guy didn't want me to beat him, even though he was on my team, and he accidentally one day knocked my knee really bad. And that energy is still there. And we move that away, and it's neutralized into just pure energy of the universe. It's, we don't just throw it out. We have a way to take care of it. And so it's not bouncing out and hitting anybody else. It sounds weird, but
it makes so much sense. And I think the way that I come to that making sense to me is through some of the teachings of the Dharma, where there are these kind of energies that we engage with, or what we might call good activities or bad activities, you know.
Mhm.
And it's interesting because ultimately at their nature, these actions have the same natures, that they're empty. And so I kind of see how maybe what you're doing is you're taking these negative things that have happened to people and you're transforming the energy, knowing that it can't, you know, it has to exist somewhere.
Mhm.
And so just transforming it into something neutral. And that just really struck me, because I think that's sometimes what we're doing with Dharma, is I'm kind of like neutralizing some of these negative energies and recognizing that ultimately they're empty of any kind of inherent nature, permanent nature. I can change them, I can transform them.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's good to know, right? That it
It
doesn't
is
have
good
stay
to
that
know
way.
you aren't stuck with the
Yeah.
negative. Yes.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
it's a bit like soul surgery is what you're talking about there, right?
You could call it that. We just call it extraction healing in the lingo.
Yeah.
And then there's little protocols, and you learn it. You go to somebody who's teaching it, who's in integrity and has a good track record, and they teach all these things. You know, I've spent tens of thousands of dollars on workshops and 25 years. You know, I always say it's like having a master's degree in shamanism, only it's the oral tradition. You don't have a piece of paper.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
But it's what gives me the juice, you know, to keep going and to keep sharing with other people, is to occasionally go with a group of people who are doing the same thing and practice something new.
Mm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I
Mm.
was I was wondering, I have sort of a personal interest in knowing a little bit more about the spirit teachers or
Me too.
guides
Yeah.
or guides. I heard you say, yeah, all angels or whatever, all kinds of
Mm.
different beings. I think I like the way you put it, transpersonal beings,
Mhm.
Um, and I think that sort of vaguely, I think conceptually, I can kind of gather that. But Jack and I have talked about it before. I certainly have had some experience in my life feeling or sensing that there was some guidance or guiding by some type of entities.
Mhm.
And I haven't the faintest idea what or who they are. Like I've never actually, like as much as I've throughout my life over multiple decades have had experiences with them, but never known exactly what is it? Like what would you
Mhm.
say what are these things?
Mhm. Um,
And why are they connected to us? Why would any sort of transpersonal being be connected to what a particular individual, for example, me, right? Like why me? Why don't you
yeah,
go on and figure something else out,
well, they're family. They're all part of the one. And, someone once said it takes at least 6 beings to keep a human being on Earth,
Oh,
because we're
I
on the
like that.
hard planet, you know,
Because we're what?
on the hard planet. It's difficult
Oh,
here.
It is.
It's not all peaches and cream, right?
Mhm.
So we're here to study, to learn, and to be better. Whatever we are, we're here to be better, to take care of people, and um, to share and to grow and expand, and then take that expanded knowledge back to source. Source comes back in. We're just a part of source, right? So these beings that help us have agreed to help us at some time, maybe before we came in. I don't know all the answers, but I know they're there. They can be sensed, they can be seen, they can be heard, depending on how you perceive. If you were to look at them in their pure form, have you ever seen photographs of orbs?
Mhm.
That's what they would look like. But maybe I need bare energy, that nature connection, kind of that the ability to be sweet and silly and relax and eat the berries, and then to have teeth and claws if I need it,
Yeah.
you know. So the spirits share their power with us, and protect us and support us. And that's why they're here. Maybe part of the great mystery as to why we have these guys here, energetic beings who help us.
Are in your experience, are any of them adversarial in nature?
The ones who help you are not. There are some who are, who've been led astray and maybe the nasties, and there's protocols for how to deal with them as well, so that no client or yourself has the negative energies around you.
I think I may have had an experience of expelling one of those one time. It was very interesting. And, just briefly, I was on a solo backpacking trip in desolation wilderness. And I was camping overnight, sleeping, and the spirit came into my tent, and I was half awake. And it was a very kind of ghostly, very dark spirit. And at the time I was practicing Reiki, and I didn't know what else to do but just to send it those symbols, the Reiki symbols, the light. And it passed away. And there was this, it was interesting. I thinking about it the next day, I was like, why wasn't I terrified? But there was this way that I just knew what to do in the moment. And then very relaxed, I fell right back to sleep. It was fascinating. And I've always wondered, is that kind of an experience of passing along those maybe negative spirits?
Yeah, you altered its energy, and either it left because it wanted to stay mean and wasn't going to go around you, you're too nice, or you gave it a healing. Reiki is a healing modality, right? You gave the spirit a healing, and then it moved off. A lot of times I tell people, I got the creeps when I go in this house, or I go in this barn and I can feel there's a spirit there and I'm afraid. I said, why don't you just tell it to leave?
Yeah.
Go away. I don't want you here. If that's all you know how to do, instead of, putting your tail between your legs and, oh my God, something's here. Yeah. Just tell it to go away.
That we can be strong. We have that power. And that we have, knowing that we have guides too. It's like if we're surrounded by beings who are trying to support us in this crazy world, then what fear should we have? We've got it.
I think there may be something to this. It's interesting that Jack, your story. I have a similar one, and I won't go into all the details, but in it also involved. So there was a sort of a dark, sort of fierce entity, if you will, that was in fact quite scary. It was terrifying. But then I actually, something said like, oh, practice Tong Lin with it, and which is the sending receiving meditation. And I actually did it right there with it. And it was beautiful to watch. It transformed in both me and it. And that was fine. Everything, like just the same as what you said, Jack, it sort of passed on by just fine. And I kind of wonder if maybe to answer my own question, it's not just support. Maybe there's something that we can do for them.
Absolutely.
I hadn't thought about that. That's neat.
Yeah, the being that is bothersome then is moved off and given a healing by being taken where it needs to go. And if it's real negative energy and it's not a human spirit, then there's a way of just kind of nullifying it and transmuting the energy.
That's fascinating.
It is.
I was just going to say the way that I think so much of this is just coming back to some of the Dharma knowledge that I've been learning, and reminding myself that no matter how someone, or maybe a spirit or a person, presents themselves to me, maybe it might be aggressive or obnoxious or have a really negative kind of energy, knowing that the nature of that person or that spirit is actually just goodness, or even just, neutral universal energy, because that's what we all are. And so, reminding myself that I don't need to be overwhelmed by someone's presentation, but I can be reminded about their inherent nature.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That is well put. I like it, Jack.
Yeah. 10 points and another level for you.
Thanks. I'll take it.
All right. All right.
Oh, well, I'd love to hear a little bit about, just because I'm maybe I'm being a little selfish right now, but I'm, involved in the mental health world.
Mhm.
And I would love to just hear a little bit about how, shamanic practitioners perceive mental illness, from as kind of basic as, just general depression, to, something like psychosis. How do shamans perceive mental illness? And I imagine it might be quite different from Western modalities.
Well, perceiving, interesting word. We're just meeting a person where they're at. And if they're extremely depressed, healing modalities would be about the same. In part of my training, the psychopomp work, where if you had a spirit attached to you or hanging around you and we get it moved off, a lot of times spirit possession can make people crazy or addicted or whatever. And if okay, let me back up. The people who trained me were trained by the Brazilian Spiritist Church, who actually in their town cleared out the mental hospitals when they cleared the spirits of the humans that were having problems. Okay, they brought them into balance. It's true, there could be an organic reason why someone is not functioning. Something's broken physically, but spiritually, if they have, too much other energy on them, or they have possessing spirits, they could be really hard to live with.
Yeah.
And, could be hearing voices and following them and not doing good things. So those kind of people don't usually come to people like me, but in a spiritist culture, they would be treated by healing the soul, healing the spirit as far as they could go with it. And I have been told that helps. Helps a lot. It's the same way I would heal you or, your horse or a person who's sick. If I was asked, you don't do anything, you don't look at somebody energetically unless you're asked to. Once in a while, for my safety, I will look at someone energetically. This person's going to operate on me. I'm going to look at their energy. I want to know they're a healer. I want to know their integrity. I'll take a look, but I don't do anything to them,
Nothing uninvited. That's what I heard you saying. Is that right?
Right.
What type of people in your practice, what type of people are drawn towards shamanic healing? What are I guess, not just the type of people, I don't think that's really the question.
Yeah, because it could be anyone.
What are some of the reasons? Like, so for example, in the beginner's meditation group that I like to frequent at Lion's Roar, one of the common things people present with a lot of anxiety, they'll come in and they'll say, I have anxiety and that's why I'm here. They're not there. They don't say there's nothing spiritual about it. There's nothing, anything. It's just, I'm dealing with anxiety. I was told meditation would help. And so I'm here. And I'm just curious, like, is there something like that people present with sort of common ailments or issues?
Could be all over the map. There's not, yes, people come for anxiety, depression, healing trauma. Soul retrieval is very helpful for that. I'm just fussed up and I don't know why. I don't know what's wrong with me.
Yeah. Yeah. Grief. Do people come to you with, where after suffering loss?
Yes, they do. And then in that connection, if I see their lost loved one around them, then I can deliver messages. And then that could be very healing for them. And sometimes it surprises me when I say, I see this spirit, it looks like this, and it's saying this. And, they start crying. They get it out, because they know the message is coming from the soul of that being. So I do a little of that when it comes up,
Judy, could you tell us a little bit more about what you mean by that term, a spiritist culture? I'm really curious to hear more.
People maybe more closer to their indigenous heritage who grow up knowing it's always there. There's these helpers, they're always talking to them. They may have names for the different types of them, and they know they're there. They interact with them all the time for healing, to get information, to make the garden grow, to find the food, to find a kill, put meat on the table. And it's just always there. But we're raised to, live in the objective world, not the subjective world, if that makes sense. It's all out here. It's all out there. You got to get up, you got to go to school, you got to do. And, yeah, your imaginary friend. Okay, go here. Here's a truck. Go play with that. Here's a doll. Go play with that.
Yeah.
It's not a part of the culture. Even, you go like Europe and in the folklore, the leprechauns and the little people in the garden and everything, and they just grow up naturally interacting with them.
I don't know, I think it was this interview coming up that attracted me to a particular movie the other night. It was called Ex-Shaman. And it was about this indigenous shaman. I think he was in Peru. I think I could be wrong about that. But there were all these videos of him and his tribe or his people back in like the 60s and 70s, and they would have been definitely at that point considered a spiritist sort of culture. But he was bemoaning the fact that now people just take aspirin, and the church had driven out all the shamans and made people not talk to them and that type of thing. And so there was really sort of like an intentional destruction of the shamanic practices, the indigenous shamanic practices anyway. So it's that part of it, it was quite sad actually, because it felt like there was something lost, like, yeah, there's benefit to aspirin, perhaps, nothing wrong with that. But throwing out the entire shamanic practice that's been here for thousands of years, or, for a long, long time in pretty much every single culture. It's amazing to me that we would destroy that without trying to save what seems to be a value. And I was wondering if you could maybe talk a little bit about, I know that you had mentioned an interest in talking about modern mysticism, which to some degree, that's what we're doing. But I was wondering if you could maybe touch on that topic and maybe sort of like, your shamanic mysticism, is it influenced at all by, like Christian, Islamic, Hindu, Buddhist, any other sort of forms of mysticism?
I have not studied any of their forms of mysticism. Just from my personal opinion, there's always the church, and then there's the deeper practices of church that most people don't ever get to, which may involve the more mystical nature, being able to actually talk to your angels or talk to Christ or whatever.
Yeah.
And you're doing it, but most of the religions want to keep you from doing that because they want to be the ones that talk to God. And you need to be in control. The shamans were killed. Shamans were invited into, the house. The house was locked and set on fire. The shamans were driven out. The women were killed. The men were killed. The groves were cut down. It was a constant battle. Build your church on their sacred grove,
Yeah.
And so I haven't studied the deep mystic parts of any religion. You'd have to be in the club.
Yeah. Well, to the degree that I've studied any of them, I oftentimes, I've said it, I don't know how many times, but I really feel like all the mystics say the same thing. Like it doesn't, it doesn't, to the degree that I've studied it, I actually can't tell the difference between Christian mystic and
No, it's just cultural. It's like,
exactly.
I could put on a feather thing like this and have clacking things on a fang regalia, and doing this jumping around like the Korean shaman or whatever.
Yeah.
But you take the culture out and you have divination, soul retrieval, extraction healing, power restoration. And it's what they do. That's why the Foundation for Shamanic Studies, they call it core shamanism, because Michael Harner, he brushed aside all the cultures. What are they all doing? This is what they're doing. That's what he teaches. And so those of us who study it now, we get the basics, and then we go off and create our own culture.
Yeah.
Like I call to the power of the West, and the being that came to me was a bear. Somebody else, it may be a salmon, or a hummingbird. I don't know. That's me. That's inside of me. That's what's coming to me. Yeah.
So we're getting kind of close to the end of our time here, and I was curious if there are any if there was any little younger Judy Lynn Taylors that were listening to the program or watching, and they what would you say to them to encourage sort of a deepening of this practice, or what would you say to a young shamanic practitioner that may not even know that they're a shaman?
You mean a child?
Yeah.
Actually, just
yeah.
Well, raise your children to use their imagination and not always be sitting there doing this. If you listen to children play, actual play with something, toys or whatever, very often they're talking to them. They know who's there. Just encourage them to be who they are. Yeah. One time, my grandson was 6 or 7, and he had what he called my world inside. And so I was sitting there one time and I said, okay, well, let's go into our worlds, And he said, okay, can you see the unicorn? And I go, yeah. The silver one? Yeah. Okay, now we're going over here. And we were following each other along, and he could do that. He has a very well-developed world inside in the imaginal space. And you don't want to say, that's, that's not real. You want to support that. And then later on, as they grow and they hold on to that imaginative thinking, it comes out in a spectacular video game and they become billionaires, all this imaginal stuff. And a lot of it is full of beings from the time of legends, mystical creatures, and, power, use of power.
So right.
Well,
it's a
Judy,
perfect-
I was going to say, I just feel like we need to do another talk sometime together, because I want to just hear more about, what could our world look like if we raised our children this way, or, developing this imaginal and spiritist culture, how different the world would be. And I'm going to be thinking about that for a while. So thank you so much.
Judy, if there's anybody who's in need of or who would want to reach you for shamanic healing, should they reach you through the website? Is that the best way to do that?
Yeah, there's a contact form there.
Okay, fantastic. And that's adventureinshamanism.com, right?
Right.
Yep, I think I got that right. Awesome. Judy, thank you so much. Jack, you as well. Really appreciate both of you being here. I look forward to talking to you some more, Judy. You've piqued my interest.
Thank you to all those who came seen and unseen. We are grateful.
I was just going to ask if there was a way we should close considerately, but you just did. So thank you.
Okay.
Good night,
Have fun,
everybody.
everybody.
Thank
See you next time.
Bye-bye.
That's great. Take care.